I welcome the CMA Amitabh Teji, who will be deliberating the second session of this third day event. That is, the session is on challenges and opportunities for cost content in current times. CMA Amitabh Teji is the immediate past president of the institute, and I had the opportunity to work with him as the vice president the immediate previous year. Amitabh Teji is a very silent worker, large number of initiatives he has brought in his tenure, including MCBT, which we were discussing day before yesterday, mandatory capacity building training. It was planned at that time, all back-end planning was done that time. The practical implementation came in by tenure. Similarly, the SAP, which was launched for student and member this year, was also the project finalized by Amitabh Teji only. I still recall one of the meetings in the CAG. We used to get a very high number of complaints or suggestions from the practicing member that for internal audit, the corporate asked for the CRG registration number, whereas the cost accountant does not have such a registration. We solved that problem. He was the key in leading that issue with the CAG, and it was only a 1 month, and he took, and finally the problem was solved. Large number of achievement to his credit, which it will be he will can share with you whenever he gets the time to do. He is presently a registered valuer also, and he is serving the profession today also, the council today also. He is a chairman of our one of the study group to recommend suggestions on draft valuation bill. Draft valuation bill has been released few weeks back, and this month we need to give suggestions to the government. I once again welcome Amitabh Teji and look for his session. Over to Papan sir, Bagramanji. So you need to unmute. You need to unmute, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, CMA Balwinder Singh ji, Honorable President, for very nicely, very briefly telling about our CMA Amit Bhai. And just I also get more emotion when I want to request Amit Bhai to come and address all of us. Yes, he was a council member, I was a chapter person, or rather a regional council person, and got an opportunity to work under him because he was the chairman of CAT, that is Committee for Accounting Technician. And I remember those days he travelled across the state Kerala, the initiative done by M. Gopalakrishnan sir. Subsequently, the MOU signed by Rakesh Singh sir, Honorable former President. And it was Amit Bhai who never showed that he is a council member and made me very comfortable, because always we see council members like something. Now I understood after entering the team, but we were like that. But he gave so comfort, and you won't believe, step by step, that golden hand, that cat became a lion, we used to tell. And it has grown up in such a manner that all the states are now coming behind that. I am very thankful to Balwinder ji for giving me that chairmanship now, with a lot of guidance and learning from people like Amit Bhai. And you are telling about he is still with us in so many things. But I am very happy that he is still my Amit Bhai Mera, I should tell. The tie which I am wearing, it is a gift from my Amit Bhai. I am telling openly. And Balwinder sir was telling how high quality tie you got. I want the members also to know the relationship. The moment he relinquished his duty as president of the institute, that day he gave it to me as this is for you, my Papan Bhai, like that. That closeness we have, and always, yes, very silent performer, and he has done a lot of work for the profession, still continuing. And we would like to listen to Amit Bhai. In fact, Murali Prasad sir was telling in one of his feedback that Papan was telling about that president requesting us in court. It was actually Amit Bhai who made that. His voice and my voice are so similar that that brothers were treated as equal, and because of Amit Bhai also, we are also here, and everything is for good, like that Amit Bhai was telling, because in his place there is power cut, there is no current supply. So the A.N. Raman sir was worried about network and other issue. Now it is so good that now everything is good, and Amit Bhai is with us. Over to you, Amit Bhai. Everybody are eagerly. And again, I am telling you, we have provision to go up to 2:30 p.m. Still, whatever way you want to go ahead, Amit Bhai, you can go ahead, because this is a beginning. We will be coming again. Of course, in our studio, we have CMA P. Raju here. We have Neeraj Joshi. We have Kaushik Banerjee. We will be shortly joined by Chandra Vadwa sir also. He is yet to join. I don't know whether any technical issue. So all are with us. So over to you, immediate former President Amit Anand Apte sir for all and Amit Bhai for me. Over to you, Amit Bhai.
Thank you, Pappan Bhai. I hope I am audible and I am also sharing a presentation.
Yes.
I hope that there is no issue as far as the presentation display is concerned.
Yes, Mohan Bhai is there to help you if need be. Otherwise, you can go ahead.
So, Honorable President, Mr. Padmanabhan, Mr. Raju Iyer, Neeraj Joshi, all the council members, my immediate earlier slot speaker, A.N. Raman sir, and the secretary of our institute, Kaushik sir, and all the members. I'm told that there are about 800 members who are attending the webinar or web interactive webinar as has been conceptualized by the committee which is chaired by Padmanabhan sir, and I thank for this opportunity for interacting with the members, even though the entire country is in a lockdown situation. Friends, before I start giving my presentation, I will just share a small story with all of you. The story may be known to some of you, especially those who are law students or who have done their law degree also, must be definitely knowing about this story. It is a story of Protagoras, who was a very well-known Greek lawyer almost 2000 years ago, and his disciple Euthyphilus. So the story goes like this, that when Euthyphilus enrolled himself as a trainee with Protagoras, Protagoras told him that he will be taking a fee for training of all his disciples. And Euthyphilus also agreed to pay a certain fee at the end of his training. But then Protagoras gave him a leeway. He told him that you will pay me only after winning your first case. You need not pay me immediately after completion of the training. So Euthyphilus was very happy. He completed the entire training. But as things would have it, after completing his training, after becoming a lawyer, for whatever reasons, he never practiced as a lawyer. So what happened was that he never bothered to pay Protagoras the fee that was agreed. Now Protagoras decided to sue Euthyphilus, and he had a very clear concept when he went to the court. He thought that when I go to the court and if I win the case against this disciple of mine, the court will legally direct Euthyphilus to pay me my fees. And just in case I happen to lose, still Euthyphilus will have to pay me the fees, because then Euthyphilus would have won his first case. Whereas Euthyphilus, on the other hand, thought otherwise. He thought that just in case I lose the case, still I don't have to pay anything, because as per the terms of our agreement, I would need to pay only if I win the case. And if at all I happen to win the case, then legally, since I have won the case, I am not bound to pay at all. So even in that scenario, I will not pay. That was the sorry for the interruption, Pappan Bhai. I think you have not made me live. Apparently, you are still live on the channel.
No, you are. I have put you on the live, and that
Yes, sir, you are live, sir.
I'm like, okay, because I'm not able to see myself, but that is fine. I don't need to see my own face.
That Mohan has to. You are a very sweet and handsome
Coming,
person.
sir. He's live now.
As long as you all are seeing me, I'm fine with that. So this story is called as the Protagoras paradox, and you all may have seen a very peculiar resemblance in the situation that the entire world is facing today with the advent of the epidemic, or rather the pandemic. All the governments are in a situation whether to lock down the entire country at the cost of the economy, or whether keep the economy running at the cost of lives of their citizens. And practically there is no clear-cut answer or no straightforward answer to this paradox. And that is why I thought of sharing the story, small story, with all of you before I start my session. Friends, about 2 months back, I think that was in the beginning of February, I was giving a lecture in Surat, and over there I made a presentation as to how India can potentially become a 5 trillion economy in the next 5 years, and how we CMAs can contribute to the target set by our Honorable Prime Minister to make our economy a 5 trillion economy. So if you look at the 2019 figures, India was having a GDP of $2.94 trillion, and we were the 5th largest economy in terms of GDP. And over the next 5 years, we were expected to grow at a steady rate of around 11% nominal growth and achieve the 5 trillion dream that we are all having. However, it was not to be. And was that there was a epidemic that was detected in China sometime in 2019 November, and then many of the countries, one after the another, started reporting the first cases, starting with Italy, Spain, UK, France, USA, and India as well. So almost same time during the year, all the countries face this challenge. And then the entire economy, to a certain extent, went for a toss. In fact, just last month on 22nd of April, I made another presentation in a webinar as to how to reboot our economy. And at that time, I had shared the infections in these countries, these 7 countries, which are the highest infected countries in the world. And at that time, USA was at 7.64 lakhs, and we were just at 17,000. You might have noticed then that in a period of about 15-16 days, today is 8th, so maybe 18 days, we have reached a figure of 53,000, and USA is at 12,63,000. So USA's numbers have grown by only 50%, whereas ours have grown by around 250%. And the rest of the countries like Spain, Italy, France, UK, and of course China have also shown numbers which are not so alarming as they were initially thought to be. And the lockdown that was implemented by all these countries seems to have succeeded. But still, even today, apart from China, majority of the world is still under a lockdown. Italy has lifted its lockdown just 4 days back on the 4th of May. Spain is still continuing till 24th of May. And there will be partial lifting in the UK from 11th of May. USA has also announced that during the month of May, they will be slowly asking various states to one by one ease their lockdowns. And as things stand in India, at least till 17th of May, the lockdown is bound to continue. Almost 1/3 of the global population is in some sort of a lockdown or other. And obviously, the global economic prospects have worsened conspicuously. Naturally, what is going to happen is there are going to be widespread unemployments. Already, some of the countries have reported very high level of unemployment figures, and there will be mass bankruptcies as well, because some of the businesses may not be able to withstand this 1.5 to 2 months of complete lockdown of their business. In fact, just a couple of days back, there was a news item in Times of India which reported that as many as 11.4 crore unorganized sector workers have been rendered jobless. And this is primarily those sectors which are in the construction or the roadside restaurants, primarily the unorganized sectors. And what I foresee is going to happen after the lockdown is lifted, because right now there are not too many people on the roads, and the police and the health workers are the only ones which are freely moving around. But once the lockdown opens, there is a possibility that there will be increase in the overall arson and the thefts and the overall increase in the crime rates that could be seen not just in India but across the globe. One more challenge that we as a country are going to possibly face is a large number of repatriates coming back. The NRI people coming back to India because of these job losses. In fact, I studied the country-wise NRIs. So there are about 1.25 crore NRIs across the globe. And out of these 1.25 crores, about 89 lakhs are in Middle East alone. And you are all aware that oil prices have dropped like anything. And the overall Middle East economy is likely to be under certain turmoil. And there could be a lot of job losses, especially in the Middle East area, if not in the entire world. And we will have to cope up with these people also coming back to India and looking for opportunities in India. And it will also affect the overall forex that these NRIs have been remitting to India. About $80 billion was the figure last year. So it is going to be affecting entire thing. However, things are not as bad to the Indian economy as seen. If you look at the IMF economic outlook, what they are predicting is current year 2020, the world is likely to degrow by about 3%. And the developing economies or the emerging markets are degrow by about 1% as far as the GDP growth is concerned. But India is still likely to be at around 1.9%, which is not bad considering that almost 2 months of our entire economic activity is at a standstill. But nevertheless, even the IMF is quite hopeful that once we overcome the lockdown scenario, things should improve, and 2021 will be a much better year, not only for India, but for the entire world. As I feel, some of the initiatives taken by the government of India have been, in fact, a blessing in disguise. And we would have been in a much worse situation had these initiatives not been taken. So just to name a few, Digital India was one initiative which has created internet accessibility to a large extent during the last several years. And majority of the government filings and the digital records are now available. And so also the digital payment system has been focused on by the government, which has proved to be a boon in the current times. Also, the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, or a pet project of our Honorable Prime Minister, whatever success it would have got so far, one thing is quite clear: it did generate a lot of awareness as far as the overall health and the overall cleanliness is concerned, and it might have helped in overall controlling the numbers so far, as is seen from the numbers that have been reported. Also, the financial inclusion initiatives taken by the government, like the Jan Dhan accounts or the direct transfer benefits, like last month, the Honorable Finance Minister has announced a package of 1.7 lakh crores to the lower strata of our population, and majority of them are going to be transferred certain amounts directly to their Jan Dhan accounts, which were created only during the last 4-5 years. So that has also worked as a boon. And the Make in India initiative, though it has not got the required intake so far, and it has not been a grand success so far. But I believe that going forward, this one initiative of the government will definitely be looked upon by many countries, especially those who are looking to shift their operations out of China for whatever reasons, and relocate to India. And that this possibility is definitely could become a reality. Of course, there are certain initiatives of the government which are not fully implemented, and a lot needs to be done as far as those are concerned. One of the initiatives will definitely be the income tax reforms. Just last year, though the rates of our income tax are now more or less competitive with the rest of the world, in fact, they are better than majority of the world. Still, a lot of simplification in the form of the direct tax code or a conscious effort to reduce the various litigations is required to be done by the government. And unless that happens, the Make in India initiative is likely to suffer to a certain extent. Same was the case of GST, that though we were able to implement GST in 2017, which was actually good, because had this been implemented, say, in 2019, we would have been in a bigger soup in current scenario. But still, the overall infrastructure and the operational difficulties that many of the business houses are still facing need to be thrashed out on priority. And same is the case in case of the labor reforms, which I feel are still a work in progress. And as far as the land reforms are concerned, practically nothing has been started as of yet. And that could be a challenge when we require many companies to come to India and set their shop over here. Similarly, many of the cost accountants are facing a lot of challenges, whether in practice or in their jobs. One of the first problem that many of us have faced was the availability of the data. Practically, majority of us had to work from home since about 20th of March, and we never planned that we may have to sit home for more than a month. And that is why some of the data, especially in bigger firms, what has happened is majority of the data was stored in central server. And since the office is shut down, the access to this data has become a challenge. And this was actually a boon to smaller practitioners, because many of them were actually working from their own houses or nearby places, and the entire data was on their laptops. So they have been able to service their clients much better than bigger firms. Similarly, there has been an impact of technology on all the practitioners, and since we are no longer able to move out, a lot of things are required to be done on the net. And so the mobile technology or the apps such as Google Meet or this Microsoft Team that we are using for today's webinar, or even for that matter Zoom, which has been in the controversy in the recent past, has been not used by many of us. But then I'm hopeful that we have overcome this problem, and now we are all quite conversant with the technology that we are required to operate on. And as also some of us, I believe, have moved their data on cloud kind of infrastructure, and we have now started accessing the data as well. Of course, many are still facing the challenge that we do not have proper infrastructure in our own house. For example, even at my place, since today morning, MSCB, or rather the power supply is in some kind of a disarray. And even though our Honorable President had instructed that this is going to be a regular kind of a program and we should all come in full suit and proper attire, I'm not able to operate my air conditioner, and so I have skipped wearing the coat today, even though I have I'm wearing the tie. But then these kind of challenges are bound to be there, because our infrastructure, all said and done, is not the world standards. Another problem that all of us have definitely faced is the cash flow, especially when it came to paying the salaries for the month of April, because most of the billing that the practitioners had done during February and March, all those bills are still outstanding. Majority of those revenues have not come in, and while paying the salaries for April, this problem was not so highly felt when we paid the salaries for March, except to the extent that those of us who were not having a digital payment kind of a facility with the bank or online payment facility faced this challenge, where they had to visit the bank for making those payments. But for rest of them, that was not a challenge. But this month, definitely the challenge is going to be the cash flow, which is going to impact all of us. And then there are going to be certain loss of assignments or deferral of assignments, as I see it. And similarly, those cost accountants who are in jobs could possibly see loss of their jobs. Though I don't see this as a very major problem, but still it is likely that some of our brothers and sisters could lose their jobs in the current scenario. And of course, there could be a reduction in the overall job opportunities that are available. Apart from the cuts in the professional fees and the salaries that some of the companies might require us to take. One thing that we all must be very, very careful at this time is that under no circumstances should we resort to something like the undercutting for getting assignments, because if undercutting is resorted to, it will have very, very long-term kind of effects, and our profession will be at loss because of those kind of tendencies. Another challenge that we are facing is the compliance calendar. Of course, thanks to the government, majority of the due dates have been extended, except maybe the tedious due dates which were kept as it is. And so majority of the compliances we have been given time till June to comply. But then there is one more thing, which is the cost audit. And as far as the companies who are having their financial year closure on 31st of December, all those companies, the deadline for filing the cost audit report to the board is around 30th of June. And in form CRF4 is in July, and that is likely to be a major challenge. But of course, President sir has already addressed this issue, so I don't spend too much time on this slide for you, because the present law clearly states that under Rule 6, Sub-Rule 5 of the cost record maintenance and cost audit rules, the cost auditor is required to finalize and submit his report to the board within 180 days from the closure of the financial year. And the board has then further 1 month to file the cost audit report along with their explanations to any qualifications, if at all are there, in form CRA4. But when I was the president in December 2018, the ministry has already issued a modification to this rule, whereby this rule 6.6 has been amended, and there is a fresh rule now. No, partner.
Yes, yes, yes.
Am I back online?
Yes, yes, you are very much back on online. Please
Okay,
continue.
so once again, the power is gone, and the entire my broadband connection has been reset. But thankfully, I was already prepared for this scenario because of the experience I was having since morning, and so I had kept another connection through my mobile phone active, so I could get it online within a minute's time. So the sub-rule 6.6 has been amended so as to include that the provisions in case companies which get extension of the time of holding the AGM under section 96, they may file the form CRA4 within the resultant extended period, which also means that we have time till 30th of September to file our cost audit reports, even for the year December 2019, and that is taken care of. Naturally, there is going to be certain change in the practice or the jobs that we all must expect once this lockdown period is over. Number one, the use of technology and automation will be required at a much larger or large scale level than what we have been using so far. So there has to be a preparedness from the practitioners as well as those in the jobs, that maximum use of technology they will have to do in the various assignments that they have been given to, and we should also be on a lookout as to whether there are certain assignments or tasks that we are doing which could get replaced by because of the automation, and we have to be alert as far as that is concerned. We have also to ensure that the overall value addition is the name of the game going forward, rather than simple compliance. And we have to focus as to how much value we can add to the our client company or the company in which the cost accountants are employed, and that is the only way forward as I see it. Also, one more suggestion which I had in my mind was that we, in cost audit mechanism, had a concept of performance appraisal, wherein a performance appraisal report used to be given to the management separately, apart from the report which was being submitted to the MCA. So it is, even though this provision has been done away by the government, and I am also aware that the council is making a lot of efforts with the MCA, and in principle there is some agreement that this performance appraisal report is likely to be reintroduced by the government. But still, I feel that whether MCA does that or otherwise, we as practitioners must include the performance appraisal report in our cost audit as a part of our cost audit report and submit it to the board. This is a single document which will give you access directly to the board, and I think we should not miss this opportunity. Also, practice is going to be difficult in times to come, and I would suggest members who are especially sole proprietary kind of that going ahead, you will have to network across India. Various practitioners have to come together and form partnerships, or at least some sort of a network wherein services to the various companies can be given without physical movement of members from one place to another, by using the services of another practitioner at the other location where possibly you might be having the assignments. This is especially true because there will be long-term restrictions on the travel of many of us. Even though not mandatory, it could be for our benefit that we on our own follow some basic principles to ensure that we are not affected by the virus. And also one more change that we will all have to do is we need to stop the dependency on a single supply. Like any supplier, just in case he does not have a robust business continuity model, and this kind of a situation recurs and he is not able to service you, then you will land up in some trouble, and your face will be affected, or your goodwill will be affected as far as the client company is concerned. So maybe you should think about developing multiple resources, especially when you are taking the services, some input services. Insurance is another thing that which we will also have to look at. I'm sure that all of us are already covered under the life insurance. At the same time, we are not covered enough as far as the medical insurance is concerned. And definitely we must plan this as an additional cash flow expense, and take out these medical and life insurances, because you never know when these insurance can be of help to us. Also, there is one more insurance, especially for practitioners, that is the professional indemnity insurance, which takes care of any errors that possibly could be committed, or the losses that your clients might incur because of the mistakes committed by practitioners or their teams. And the professional indemnity insurance will take care of any such eventuality. And I think this is the time to really think about these insurance plans as well. There will be a lot of changes in the job that our members are doing, because as I told you, that some of the employees may be losing their jobs. There could be a lot of changes in the roles that we cost accountants who are in service are playing, and we have to be prepared for that. And especially considering the social distancing norms which are currently in place and which are likely to be in place for the near future, there is a likelihood that a lot of jobs will get consolidated, and the expectations of the management from the cost accountants will grow multifold. Another challenge that we are going to all face is that the interest rates are going to be very, very low in times to come. If you look at it, the fixed deposit rates of good banks even today are as low as 5 to 6%. For periods above 3 years, maybe 6%, but normally it's just 4.75% to 5.5%, which are the interest rates which are being offered by the banks. And we will have to change the methodologies that we are currently deploying, because many of us park our small-term investments in bank fixed deposits, which are no longer going to give good lucrative returns. And the problem faced by the mutual fund industry because of the Franklin debt fiasco has shaken the confidence of making our investment in debt or liquid funds as well. So maybe we should think of new avenues for investing. Something like an overnight plan of the mutual funds is something that you could possibly like to look at. And finally, I must say that because of the cash flow issues, because of losses of some of the assignments, perhaps losses of jobs, we may think of taking some sort of a loan. According to me, it's not right to fall into a debt trap because situation is not known to anybody. And as far as possible, I would say that we should resort to our existing available resources and stick to that so that we don't have to pay a big price for getting into a debt trap as of now. Of course, these challenges are also posing a lot of opportunities. And one such opportunity which all of us have already got is that we are all at home for about 50 days now. And this was the right time to invest in new skill sets, whether it be soft skills or hard skills. There are some customized programs on client acquisition and retention, team management, some new courses like the valuation course. I have already seen many of our members undertaking the independent directors examination and passing it, because if we don't capitalize on the time that we are getting right now, I feel that we will never be able to do that once we get busy in our day-to-day schedules. Another opportunity which I clearly see is the MSME sector, because it is the MSME sector which has been the most affected in current times. And the absence of adequate or the timely banking finance is something that all of them are facing. So perhaps we should help the MSME sector in getting their systems back on track, helping them with some arrangement of bank finance by working as a bridge between the MSME sector and the finance sector. And also there is a lot of unavailability of the domain expertise at affordable cost to these MSME sectors. And that is where perhaps we cost accountants can pitch in as those experts, especially in the finance and costing field. We can work as virtual CFOs. We can work out costing systems for them at affordable costs. We can, as Raman sir has already elaborated a lot on the strategic cost management, I believe that strategic cost management assignments are something that perhaps we can focus on right now, because it is likely to get much more acceptability in the industry in these challenging times. Also, there are likely to be a lot of benefits that the government schemes are likely to be announced, and we must ensure that this MSME sector as well as our own members are able to take maximum benefits of these schemes. Otherwise, typically what happens is that there are schemes available in the market, and since we do not have the knowledge, we miss that opportunity. Also, there are some specific requirements especially in the MSME sector. One is the business revival and continuity planning, and there has to be a two-pronged strategy that perhaps you can work for your clients. One is the immediate or the short-term strategy, and the other is a medium-term strategy that needs to be looked at. So as an immediate strategy, the challenge that all these MSMEs are going to face are the cash flow issues when they try to restart their production lines. That is when perhaps the working capital management, the inventory, the overall receivables management is something that every businessman will have to look at. And apart from the supply chain management, and it is even though the supply chain management is something where the businessman will spend majority of his own time, we as cost accountants can perhaps help him work out a good working capital management plan wherein the receivables as well as the payables are managed in such a way that no one loses in the process. There could be some deferral of salary that some of these business houses will have to offer, but I believe that salary cuts or salary deferrals are a better option as on today rather than loss of employment altogether, because that could have much more bad repercussions for the society as such. Also, there has to be a confidence building exercise conducted by all these MSMEs, especially their own teams, the suppliers as well as the customers. And if that confidence levels are high between each other, naturally there will be much more comfort level while working, and chances of these businesses reviving will be much higher. Apart from the immediate strategy, there has to be a medium-term strategy also that needs to be worked at, and that will typically involve the identifying the top challenges that these industries are going to face over the next maybe 2-3 years, and work out a mitigation strategy for them. So the role of cost accountants, apart from the strategic costing that they can definitely do, is also help the management in working out some mitigation strategy, and helping them prioritize their expenses. They can classify the expenses into must-have, good-to-have, and avoidable kind of expenses, and plan them so that the cash flows are not affected in the medium term as well. And then perhaps all these industries will have to revisit their capex plans. Investments either from their own resources or through bank loans, and it will be a definitely challenging scenario if after having invested in the capex, the industries are not able to get those kind of orders, and their money unnecessarily gets locked down in unnecessary assets. Then selling of some non-core assets could also be a good idea. In fact, just today's paper has reported that Kishore Biyani has announced that he will be selling off some of his non-core assets so as to service his regular businesses, and this could be a requirement for many of the small scale and SME sector industries as well. And similarly, as I suggested for the practitioners or the salaried CMAs, avoiding of the debt trap is something that we will also have to think about, and we will also have to guide the SMEs not to get into the unnecessary debt traps. Having said so, all of us should also think about the future as to what is going to happen post lockdown. So the economies are definitely going to be shaped by the new habits and regulations, and there is bound to be acceleration in the digital economy. As I already said, there will be restrictions on the travel, and the hygiene requirements will also go up dramatically, and there is practically going to be changes in how we eat, how we work, how we shop, exercise, manage our health, socialize, spend our time, and please remember that the pace at which all these changes are going to happen is definitely going to be phenomenal and unprecedented. There is also going to be major changes in the consumer behavior and the opportunities for businesses, and there will be some industries which will see very good days in time to come, whereas some industries will be laggards, as I say. And if we are able to estimate or visualize which are these industries which are going to gain, perhaps it would help us in focusing on those kind of industries to ensure that our livelihoods are not affected. And since the different industries will have a different impact, and overall the internationally there are going to be closed borders, closed economies, a lot of protectionism. In fact, you might have noticed why only internationally, but even in India, when the permission has been granted for the migrant laborers to move from one state to another, each state is trying to ensure that their interests are not affected, and how they can restrict the movement of the migrant laborers so that once the overall lockdown is lifted, these laborers are immediately available for their industries for their production activities. Also, one thing we have to keep in mind, and that is that this need not be a one-time event, once in a lifetime event. As long as the vaccination or the medication for the coronavirus is not available, and the overall estimate is it will be available for everybody only maybe another year down the line. So these kind of lockdowns may recur, maybe one or two cycles of these lockdowns may recur. And if that happens, definitely we will have to be prepared for that today. So the problems that we have faced during the current lockdown are not repeated. That much we will have to ensure, keeping in mind that the health and safety will be the #1 priority for all of us. And I am quite confident that we will come out of this problem very fast, and in a much V-type recovery is bound to happen, primarily because India as a country has its own advantages. It's a unique nation. #1, our rural economy has not severely affected by the pandemic so far. Of course, I'm not saying that they are not affected at all, but overall impact which we in cities, the impact on the urban economies is much higher than the rural economies. And more than 50% of our population is still dependent on the agricultural economy, which is relatively unaffected. Also, the monsoon rainfall forecast for the current year is 100% as per the IMD predictions, and which is a very good news as far as the agricultural industry is concerned, which contributes to about 16-17% to our overall GDP. Also, demographically, we are a much young population. The average age of our entire population is less than 30, and which is a good sign, because this virus apparently is affecting more the elderly persons. So our chances of recovery are much better. Also, because of the 1.35 billion population, we have a strong domestic consumption base, and which is going to be an asset going forward once the economies reopen. The oil prices at the lowest ever is another blessing in disguise, because oil all these years was the single largest factor as far as our imports are concerned. But then the current oil prices are such that we can easily afford importing the oil and keeping the petrol and sales diesel prices the same for us consumers. The government is getting that extra revenue which can be deployed for the betterment of the economy. That is a hope that at least I am having. And then the overall situation of the forex is also pretty good, with about $475 billion as the balance which is there in hand, which is more than sufficient for about 11 months of India's imports. And at the current oil levels, this will be much more. And lastly, ours is a land of Ayurveda and naturopathy. So I'm quite confident that because of the habits that we have inculcated, not only that we will come out of this much stronger, but the entire world would possibly look at us in a much positive way, and help the overall economy of India to grow much faster. Finally, I fully believe that ours is a butterfly profession, and even though all of us are right now sitting in our own houses, in a cocoon of our own houses, sooner or later we are going to break open these cocoons and come out as beautiful butterflies. And the cost accounting profession, as N. Raman sir has also mentioned, will come out of the current crisis much stronger, and the industry also will take cognizance of our profession, and especially all the members, whether they be in practice or in service, we have to ensure that this is the right time when we can make that impact on the industry as well as the government. And these kind of opportunities we have to definitely encash. So with this, I think I will conclude my presentation. And if some of you have any queries, I'm sure that the CMAs are ready to conquer these challenges and opportunities. Thank you. I once again thank the President and Papan Bhai for giving me this opportunity. And if at all there are any questions, I am definitely open for them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Amit Bhai, for enlightening us with your thought-provoking thing. As in between you are...
my presentation is still running or it's not?
No, now I have come live.
Okay, okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Amit Bhai. In fact, in between you are telling people are utilizing and they should utilize the time very nicely. That too through the lockdown and becoming independent director. And to tell you very honestly, I have not done any course, but I have learned the names of many of the grandchildren or the children in our family, the actual names, the relationship were told by my own mother and uncle, wife, and now I have learned. So this is in one way where I could improve my relationship with my own family member. So a lot of learning has happened in this. And some of the members, many of them have poured in with many questions. We thank Ishwar, Nirmalendukar, Biswajit Bhattacharya sir, Anuradha Davalikar madam. Yes, in fact, you and Arundhati Basu madam had told a very specific request on some MSME. Yes, as we told initially, today Neeraj Joshi sir will come with an announcement. Already M. Gopalakrishnan sir, former president, has given this thing. And the institute has conducted some survey and president has already submitted to the government and how we are going to help them. Your suggestions and your points are well taken on that. We thank L. Venkatraman sir for suggesting the institute to improve in the IT areas also. Then we thank Manoj, M. Hussain, Bubai, Chandra, Ravi Kumar Sahini, Sukumar Rath, then N. Krishnan sir, Madhavan sir, Meena Ramji madam, and specifically A to Z Murthy sir, our honorable member, who wanted to bring to the attention of Amit Bhai and everyone that what he is telling for the financial year 31/3/2020, we should not act merely as auditor but beyond the audit, as auditor, guide, and part of management. Yesterday also he was giving the same suggestions or different type. So we are thankful to all these people, and we are trying to consolidate the question. And the first Amit Bhai, which our members would like to know is, can a company refuse getting cost? This may be because you are also immediate former president and a continuous council member. You should please answer this question. Can a company refuse getting cost records audited citing this current crisis? Can we escape? That is what they are asking.
Can we escape? ये question apparently seems to be, can the companies escape?
Company refuse. The company means all our consultant. We are all part of company. That's cost audit. Yes, sir. Can company refuse?
No company can get, so no company can get away by saying that because of the pandemic, we are not having access to data, we are not having this, we are not short of resources, and so we will not do cost audits. That is very, very unlikely. And I am sure that the government will also not accept this kind of argument, especially knowing fully well that today is the time when the entire industry is in requirement for ensuring that their costs are not going overboard, and wherever possible they are saving on their costs, their performance parameters are improving. So in fact, I would rather say that this is the time to in fact enhance the scope of the cost audit with those kind of representations with the government. And maximum which possibly could happen, as has already happened for companies having their year ending on 31st of December, is that government may think about giving some additional time to the industries for getting the cost audit done and submitting it to the government, but not doing it at all. I think it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This is a clear message for some of the cost accountants who are running company. So Amit Bhai, the message is very clear to you.
It's not only about Papan Bhai, sorry to interrupt. It's not only about the cost accountants who are running the companies.
No. When you told it is for CMA or the company, one member has written, I am running a company, so I asked. So next question is, what they are asking, should we take the benefit of loan moratorium offered by the banks? That is but
Okay,
as a banker, I can also answer, but they want Amit Bhai.
See, the RBI has given some concessions by way of moratorium to all the EMIs of loans which were due during these 3 months, April, May, and June. And many of the banks have also offered a moratorium on the loans. Whereas the immediate reaction of any one of us could be to grab the opportunity and defer the repayment of the loans by 3 months. I would definitely say that if possible and if you have some resources whereby you are in a position to repay the loans, we should go ahead and continue with those EMIs. For the simple reason that this is not a waiver of payment, this is only a moratorium. So if not after during the current 3 months, we will definitely have to repay the loan after the moratorium period is over. And in fact, during the moratorium period, interest is going to be charged by the banks. So the amount due at the end of these 3 months is practically going to increase. And in fact, there are some calculations also moving around on the social media, whereby it is seen that especially long-term loans which are still more than 10, 12 years of repayment is due, the EMI term can go, or rather EMI term can increase by even 5 months if we don't pay the EMIs during the current 3 months. So definitely, if possible, I think extension we should not avail. Of course, if your financial positions are such that it is practically impossible, then there will not be any choice. Yeah.
Very true. Absolutely perfect answer, and I have nothing more to add on that. In fact, those who are really having financial issues only, later on you may have to pay more. Very nicely told by you, Amit Bhai. And the next question, of course, it is very much relevant and connected. Will India stand to gain? That is what they are asking, because of emotional backlash against China.
See, there is a clear backlash which is expected, because a lot of countries are already talking about this. President Trump has already been on the Twitter making a lot of comments against China for the last maybe 15-20 days, practically every day. Japan has in fact announced a package of about $2.2 billion to help all those Japanese companies which are willing to move their production out of China. Large companies such as the Apple, Microsoft, Google are also looking to move their production away from China. So is Korea. In fact, there was a news item just maybe 8-10 days back in Business Today that about 1,000 foreign firms are already planning to move out of China, and about 300 are actively pursuing a plan to set shop in India. Of course, this has to be taken with a note of caution that we as a country are not having that kind of infrastructure as on date, and perhaps we need to spend some more efforts on the infrastructure. But yes, emotionally there is going to be a backlash. I don't have any doubts as far as that is concerned. And India as a country, there are some inherent advantages, and especially how we have tackled this pandemic during the last month or two. In fact, immediately after our country went into lockdown, our Prime Minister has got into a phone call or a video call with all the SAARC countries and already pledged about $10 million as a COVID emergency fund. We have put together a rapid response team of doctors and specialists for SAARC people. Supply of HCQ to about 55 corona hit countries has also increased the brand value of India as a country, and that is pretty evident from the various tweets or the statements made by, say, Trump, who has clearly said that this gesture of India will not be forgotten. Also, the UN chief has saluted the efforts that India is taking to fight the COVID-19. And in fact, who has gone to the extent of saying that India's swiftness in dealing with COVID-19 will decide the future of this pandemic. So I think lot things are in our favor. So it's the right time to grab the challenges, or rather grab this opportunity that is posed to us by this pandemic.
Correct, very true. And the next question also they have connected with along. You have answered that also, so I am skipping that. And do you feel that, especially this is see many of the passed out the youth, they are asking this question. They have sent me personal this thing also. Do you feel that the job market will open up after the lockdown? They have a lot of anxiety on this, and they would like to hear from the institute. And since you are here present today, we would like to hear from you, Amit Bhai, on this.
I think there should be two responses to this. From my side, I would really say that it is actually anyone's guess as to how the job market is going to be once the lockdown is lifted. But I am quite optimistic for the simple reason. I've been reading a lot of economy or business related newspapers and magazines over the last few weeks. And if you notice, there are about 2 lakh jobs, fresh jobs, which have been posted on various sites during the last month or so. And about 25% of these are posted just in the last week. And the jobs are from recruiters such as the Amazon, Google, Tech Mahindra, Walmart, then Deloitte, JP Morgan, even Flipkart, Byju's, Grofers are going to hire big based on the data that has been published, in fact, in the Economic Times, I think 8-10 days back. And out of these 2 lakhs, some 80,000 openings are for the entry level. Of course, for our institute, I think President Sir is here, so maybe he will throw some more light on this. But even though our placement season could not take place in April, which we normally do, I'm sure that with some adjustment and with some postponement, our institute will still go ahead with the placements. And possibly the industry is still ready, even in current crisis, to get our cost accountants on board.
Yes.
In fact, there are some good news that we have received from TCS and Capgemini also. For example, Capgemini, in fact, has increased the salaries of about 70% of their staff.
Correct.
And the guidance of TCS has also been quite encouraging. And in fact, even they have said that they will be honoring all the 40,000 odd campus offers that they have made at the beginning of this year.
Yes.
And they are also optimistic that the recovery will happen as soon as the third quarter of the ongoing fiscal. So, which is good news. I think we should be hopeful that soon after, maybe a month or two after the lockdown is lifted, the job market will once again be positive, especially for cost accountants.
Yes. Thank you so much, and hope our youngsters who are also worried about, they are very happy. You rightly told, yes, the Balwinder thing, as Honorable President, he shared with me one very thought-provoking mail and message, how he want to see the future of the youngsters. You are absolutely right, Amit Bhai. He is in fact taking ahead. Today also, while introducing you, he was telling about a SAP course and other thing, Directorate of Studies coming. With this, I think the future is online, and definitely our people will get more scope in various, like you are giving us an example, TCS. And one final question, of course, our members should, even now questions are pouring in, they should excuse me. We are concluding here because we have some very important dignitaries, they have joined us right now. And the next question is, are there any specific sectors that you feel should benefit due to the change in business models post-lockdown? That is due to change in business models post-lockdown.
If you ask me, pharma and healthcare is one sector which is already booming even during the lockdown, and I presume that it will continue to do so even after the lockdown.
Yes, yes. Maybe network. Okay, Amit bhai, we will again come back to you. Maybe the power. Yes, you have come back.
The Amazon and Flipkart. Yeah.
Yes.
So the online platforms for e-commerce. In fact, even during the current situation, Flipkart and Amazon have not been operational in India. But immediately after the lockdown is opened, I think those will be the kind of businesses which will definitely boom. In fact, bookings.com is possibly the only online platform which is not likely to revive anytime soon, because the theaters and those kind of public gatherings are still going to be banned. Another two industries which come to my mind, which could surprise many who are attending this session. One is the tourism industry. See, tourism and travel industry are the industries which are the worst affected in the current pandemic. But as things improve, according to me, the local tourism, and in particular the rural tourism, is the thing which will immediately pick up, because majority of the Indians would like to move around, having been locked in their own houses for such a long time. And definitely, at least I would not like to travel abroad in this scenario. I would like to go to a smaller village where I can relax and get my mindset better. So maybe the local tourism and rural tourism are going to benefit out of this. And also, I feel that the automobile industry, especially the industry which manufactures low-end two-wheelers and low-end cars, are the ones which will benefit. Because immediately after the lockdown is lifted, what is going to happen is majority of our population would not like to go by a share transport or a public transport, or even for that matter transport which is provided by his own company. He would rather prefer to use his own vehicle. And I'm not very bullish on the luxury cars or high-end two-wheelers, but yes, low-end two-wheelers and cars having value less than maybe 4 or 5 lakhs should pick up real fast. Yes. That's what my view is.